Is it okay?
Martine, how are you? Good to see you. Merry Christmas.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our meeting. It's Wednesday, December the 6th, 2006, 5:40. Everybody please rise for lead us into prayer. Vicki, please.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for bringing us together this evening. We thank you for your gifts of wisdom and courage, and we pray that you allow us to use these gifts to justly and faithfully lead our community. Especially blessings, Father, for the servicemen and women who are serving and protecting our country. Keep them safe from harm and help bring them back home soon. We pray this in your holy name.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. Mr. Cifuentes, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, sir?
Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're going to take the items out of order. Chief Guavito would like to swear in one of our new police officers.
Yes, sir.
The commissioners join us. We have a police officer that we're going to be swearing in. Mario has been working with us now for 9 months as a security guard, and we're going to swear him in as a police officer.
Sir, congratulations, sir. Raise your right hand. I, Mario Esquivel,
I, Mario Esquivel,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute the duties
that I will faithfully execute the duties
of peace officer of the state of Texas
of peace officer of the state of Texas
and will, to the best of my ability,
and will, to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution and laws
the Constitution and laws
of the United States.
of the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Now, George.
Congratulations. Thanks, sir.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Sign it again.
Yeah.
Just sign the bottom. Thank you very much.
Sir. Okay, Ms. Seymour.
Item number 2 is public audience. We have no one signed up to speak at this time. So item number 3, approve minutes of regular board meeting of November 29th, 2006.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item number 4, interim director's report. My report's going to be very short since we had a meeting last week. Just wanted to, we had a meeting with the truckers yesterday, and as you know, several of them were here today. So we're going to be working on that item with the permitting fee coming in. I believe that they've already formed a committee, so we're going to give them, Tony's going to contact them tomorrow. We'll set up a date for a meeting in a week and a half, so we'll get together and try to come up with some plan and then come back to the commissioners. Also, I had a meeting today, a very productive meeting today with 2 ladies from Texas A&M University regarding the sinking of the Clipper. That vessel is in port now. It came through Texas Parks and Wildlife. The port's been working on that for about 4 or 5 years now. The vessel is in port. ESCO Marine is doing the remediation work on that, and they're planning, the Texas Parks and Wildlife are planning the event for somewhere April or May. So they've asked the port's help, along with South Padre Island, to come together and put together a plan for the event. And so as we start working on that, I'll get back to you with more details, but we plan to make that a huge event for the port, for ESCO, for the sinking. It's going to be quite a show. Also, we're staying in constant contact with the Corps of Engineers. Ray Ramirez, and I don't think he's here, but he notified me this morning that the last ship that we had out there, the 37.8-foot draft, came in yesterday with no problems. So the pilots are still looking. We're still at a 37-foot draft, but we have a plan from the Corps, and it looks like if everything goes according to plan, that we'll have the dredge in, and it'll be done by the end of March for the jetties. And then they'll continue on down the channel, but we're still meeting with them on a daily basis.
Donna, did they approve that already?
The bid is going out.
Oh, okay.
The contractor did turn in his part of it, and that's in contracting now, but the bid package should go out, I think Hector said around the middle of December. They're going to award it. And
December 11th will be the advertisement.
And then-
Bids are supposed to be received on the 4th of January, and then within 10 days, issue a notice of award.
All right. But the work won't be done till March, you said, or?
The end of March. All that disposal at the jetties is going on South Padre Island as a renourishment. So they were working within their timelines to get it done, so it wouldn't interfere with their spring break.
Okay.
As little as possible. So
Good.
it's going to a beneficial use, and they're getting the disposal. And that's really all I have.
4 items. Okay, thank you, Ms. Seymour. Next item?
Item number 5, consider an act on canceling regular board meeting of December 20th.
Are we are we having a meeting next week? Okay.
We do
That'll be-
have some items that we need to present, and by canceling the December 20th, our next meeting is not until January the 10th, so that would space it pretty far out. So, I mean, either we can have the 20th meeting, or we can move it to a different day, or we can just have a meeting next week.
Well, there's hardly anything on the agenda for that. I mean, it's not that many items on, so we'll do it then, and then we'll pick up the next one on January 10th.
Yeah, the meeting won't take very long.
So unless something comes up, then we'll
And that's
address
the
it.
day that we have the service awards, so.
That's right.
So
Okay,
ideally, it
second
would
that.
be good to have the meeting, the special call meeting on Wednesday, and then bypass this one.
Yes.
I'll
Okay.
make a motion.
Okay, we have a motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, item number 6, presentation by HDR Engineering Shiner Mosley on conceptual alternatives, Dock 16.
Chairman, members of the board, good afternoon. As you are aware, we've been working with HDR Shiner Mosley and looking at the different conceptual alternatives and costs for the design and construction of Dock 16. So far, I will allow Mr. Jeff Massengill to make the presentation, just to give a quick briefing on the scope of the project. We have performed a detailed geotechnical assessment of the site to define the soil conditions, which basically guide what can we do at that facility. We have done hydrographic and topographic surveys to assess and be able to determine the costs. With that said, let me introduce to you Mr. Jeff Massengill. He's with HDR Shiner Mosley and Associates. He has worked with us for quite some time. He was the design engineer for all Dock 5, I believe also for Cargo Dock 15, and has helped us in numerous projects. He'll probably give a little brief synopsis of how we went about building Dock 15 and all the different alternatives that we looked at and the different phases into undertaking that project.
Use this easel here. No problem. I might like to keep up a few of these boards as we go, just so you all can refer back to them. I have some handouts here. What I'm going to be speaking from mostly is under cap 1. And I can, if you all would bear with me, a lot of the boards reflect what's in here, and I can, there's a lot of information in there. We might want to just focus on the boards for a little bit, and then I can explain kind of what's in the handouts.
To benefit the folks that are here as well as the folks that are watching, it'd probably be a better idea if you can put that here,
Okay.
and I can move over there, and they can see.
Why don't you have that to me and I'll...
Okay, flip these one by one. First off, just a little introduction. Thanks for asking me to come down. My name's Jeff Massengill. I'm the National Ports Director for HDR Shiner Mosley, who's HDR and who's Shiner Mosley. I was originally Executive Vice President of Shiner Mosley and Associates. We were formed in 1985, and at the first part of 2006, we joined HDR. So that's the HDR and the Shiner Mosley. HDR is an ENR top 10 or top 20 firm that we decided to join. A little bit about my background. I've been working. Probably have experience at almost every cargo dock facility in the Port of Brownsville. I've been working here as a consultant really since 1990, starting with the Fish and Harbor Rehab. Roy's the only familiar face that I remember from the mid-90s. So I have worked at every dock facility, whether it's been a structural condition assessment. I was a design engineer on Old Dock 5, and then a little bit later in my career, Dock 15 came up. I was a project manager for the design as well as the construction there. So when there was talk about Dock 16, it made a lot of sense for me to come down with the knowledge that I've got and how Dock 16 evolved, or 15 evolved, some of the challenges that we had from everything from constructability to budget issues to why did certain things happen a certain way at a certain time. So please keep that in mind. I've got a pretty good sense of docks 11, 12, 13, 1, 2, 3, and 4, 7 and 8. Their conditions, their capacities, their original design loads, and things like that. So please feel free to tap into some of my knowledge there if you have any questions about that. A little bit on the timeline. I thought it would be good. We have some new board members here, as well as people in the audience that may be interested. We first got involved with the idea of Dock 16 actually back in 1995. We did kind of a master plan, if you will, of the site area between the drainage outfall just to the west of the east, or the liquid cargo dock. See, right in here, starting here, going all the way down right near the bulk dock. This whole complex originally was planned to be everything from a single berth that's there now to a multiple berth where you'd have up to 5 vessels in the area at one time. Well, the funds were not available to build a multi-berth, and we were really doing good just to get 15 built with the amount of money that was available. So it's kind of when Nino first talked to us back in, I believe it was in February of this year, we provided some, I think the question was asked if we were to build, what's going on since Dock 15? What's happened in the marketplace? We're 10 years down the road from when that structure was built. What's going on? And we talked about things such as, everybody knows the price of steel is a little bit different than it used to be, and the price of concrete's a little bit different, and the labor market is somewhat different. So we talked about some of those variables, and then back in, and it kind of sat idle for a little bit. I guess the idea was incubating here, and we came back in May, and the port staff had asked us if we were to build Dock 15 exactly like 15 over in the Dock 16 area, can you give us a rough figure without doing any quantity takeoffs or anything? Just give us an idea. And so, what we did was, we work on marine projects all over the United States. And specifically our design group, we've got a design group that's kind of allocated to the Gulf Coast. We're very in touch with dredging prices, local market conditions for marine construction, and things like that. And we design and bid and build or oversee the construction of a lot of facilities like this. So they wanted our opinion as to kind of what's going on. What if Dock 15 cost $12 million, what would 16 cost if it's just like it? So we provided some insight and input like that. They said, we probably need to really, I think the port staff and the commissioners were on board to say, let's take a look at what do we really need to do to get some ideas as to what Dock 16 is going to cost. There were some different numbers published or available, I guess, with some differences of opinion on what cost might be for a facility if you were to do something like 15 in today's terms. So we presented a technical proposal. I think July the 26th we got signed up. The commissioners approved that. What they asked us to do was really what we had proposed to do there was let's really go back and look at, is Dock a new structure at Dock 16 at the site, is it really in the port's best interest to assume that you can just take Dock 15 and cookie cutter it there? There were some things that we did, as you recall, we talked about master planning the whole site. When we collected the original geotechnical information back in '94, what we found in general was that the further east you go on the site, although there's not a dramatic change, the soil conditions on the east end of the site were not as favorable to, economically favorable as they were the further west that you moved, okay? And so for a number of reasons, it was decided that we wanted to locate Dock 15 here. But we did have limited geotechnical information here and over here. Knowing how Dock 15 was designed and some of the construction challenges that we had there, we thought, okay, this probably warrants a little bit more of a detailed geotechnical investigation at this location. And so we went ahead and proceeded to get that done. And we'll talk about a little bit about the effects of the subsurface conditions between Dock 15 area and Dock 16 area. I don't want to get into too much technical detail unless you all would like to hear that. I'm prepared to do that if we need to. So we've been working over the past several months really to develop look at three different dock structural cross sections or structural concepts. All docks aren't the same, just like home building and other things as you might expect. So we looked at that. We looked at some different layouts for the laydown yard behind the dock, and developed opinions of probable project costs with an appropriate level of contingency assigned to it for all three structure types. And what I'd like to do this evening is go through those three structure types, kind of talk about the cost, let's understand some of the benefits of each structure type. And ultimately, I think what you'll find is that for the soil conditions that we have here, which is predominantly very stiff clays, it's a great location to build a marine terminal. And I can say that we work in a lot of places that you can't say that. This is probably one of the most economical sites to build a facility like you're looking for, Dock 16, with 600-foot frontage, 900-foot berth, and that sort of thing. So that being said, the geotechnical conditions between here and here have some impact on cost difference. So you really can't take Dock 15 and build it just like it is over at this location. Is there any questions there so far? Okay. Let's talk a little bit about one of the layouts. Thank you. Sorry, I can't see. Anybody stop me if you have a question or need me to slow down. This is an aerial view of the Dock 15 and 16 area. Looking down, Port Isabel would be over to the right. This is the east corner of Dock 15. Here's an existing warehouse. So what you can see here is this is the existing shoreline, and here's the drainage ditch. So we looked at several things. One of them is our charge was let's look at something just like 15 and scoot it down a little bit. So this is a 600-foot long structure. The dredge depth we want to talk about here in a little bit. The dredge depth for Dock 15, the channel depth that was authorized was -42. So typically what you'll do is design a modern facility like this. You'll design it for the authorized channel depth plus 1 or 2 feet of advanced maintenance dredging plus a 1 foot over dredge tolerance just for the construction techniques that are used in dredging. So the design depth for Dock 15 is -45. Okay. We looked at, and I had an interim meeting with Hector and Donna to kind of present some of these findings, and what we did look at this facility for dredging to -45, but they said, we really need to consider also what would it cost, assuming that the channel does get deep into -50, what would be the, it'd be nice maybe to know what a structure would cost that's designed for -50 to take advantage of the channel depth there. So I'll go through that here in a little bit. So we've got options presented for both -45 and actually the dredge depth is -52 that the structure would be designed for. And show you the difference in costs there. So we're looking at, in this picture, here's kind of the dock footprint, if you will, and then we have to, in order to dredge, to have -45 at the face here, you can't just cut a vertical slope, so you'll need to come in and dredge this area with an appropriate side slope. Again, you have stiff clays. You can probably easily get a 2.5 to 1 side slope to work. That's kind of what we're using for this geometric layout. A lot of places you'll see 3 to 1, 3.5 to 1. With poor soil conditions, it's more dredging. It takes up more backlands and things like that. So you have those good clays working in your benefit here. Same thing over here. You have to dredge this out, and what this is, some of this would actually be submerged, but this is a shoreline revetment, shoreline protection, similar to what you see over at Old Dock 5, and also similar to what you see on the east and west ends of Dock 15. It's an articulated block mat, very economical, good aesthetic appearance, somewhat easy to keep clean as compared to concrete rubble and things like that. And then the backland area, essentially what we were asked to do was take a look at the cost for rehabbing this existing, the term that was used internally here was a patio area. Typically that'll be called a laydown area. And then also let's look at expanding that area over to here. We'd have a little dock house, crane storage, work area, crane equipment storage, not for the crane itself. And then extend this road down. This would be asphalt. What's worked very well in the Dock 15 area is asphalt roadways and then concrete radiuses. This would be a concrete radius, and then this would be a future road extension. We didn't price that out, and this is a future warehouse, which was it's shown on there just for space allocation purposes only. Something to keep in mind when we're looking at costs. You'll see that this area right here, the dock, the dredging, the shoreline protection, is roughly 90% of your project cost. Okay, so developing the backland area with high mass lighting, 24 inches of Type A Grade 1 base material, a geotextile and a geogrid, minimal utilities in there. The cost of that is really only 10% of what we're talking about. So when I was going through understanding that there's budget concerns, I'm thinking, okay, that where you need to focus most of our effort here is really on the dock structure. And so, we can do things, and I'll be happy to talk about some options on how to cut costs in the backland area, whether you minimize, you reduce your surface area, or you reduce the thickness of material that we're putting in there. Any of those options are certainly plausible, but the cost implications, again, are somewhat minimal when you consider the overall project budget.
The road price was not included on it, just the design on it, right?
This part right here, the dash part, the future roadway, that is not included. This road section is included, right? So the only prices that aren't included that I'll present here in a little bit are really for the warehouse and this small road extension. Okay. Any questions, clarifications so far? This is going to be tough to see for you folks in the back, and again, stop me if we need to. This will be, we'll have an exhibit called Exhibit C in your handout for the commissioners. It might be easier to follow there. Based on our experience and for soil types like this, usually what you'll see is something real similar to one of these three options for a marine structure. And for this water depth and the loads that we're talking about. We'll talk about the surcharges in just a minute. Let's focus on the structure type. The upper left-hand corner, this is a cross-section that is very similar to the way Dock 15 was built. Okay, and it's a relieving platform concept where you you build your structural component of the dock system actually down lower on the ground. It's pile supported, and then you used a ballast material above that with a concrete pavement on top. And the beauty about this design is that the thickness of the ballast allows better load distribution, so that concentrated loads especially are better distributed down into the structure. As you might expect on a bridge deck or something like that, it goes right into the beams, and it's not, heavy concentrated loads are not as distributed as well. Boy can probably attest, I think there's been a few coils go through a few decks around here. This is a real good structure that's very forgiving with accidental overloads and things like that. But consequently, Dock 11, 12, and 13 have a real similar geometry to this. So what worked in the 40s and 50s is still working. This is a little bit more complex the way this is designed, but the principles are still the same. Another part about this is, when you look at the site geometry and you look at the topography there, one of the really neat aspects of this is that with this type of structure, you can build this from land with land-based equipment, and you don't need floating plant and floating equipment, with the exception of to come in and do the mechanical excavation and the hydraulic dredging out in front of the structure. What does that equate to? Higher production rates and lower equipment costs is a neat thing about this. So, and that was one of the reasons Dock 15 ended up being the preferred. This being the preferred cross section was because you could build it in the dry. If you were to try to build this over open water, this would probably not be the most economical concept. So, this also, one of the considerations in Dock 15 was try to design it in a way that might lend itself to the capabilities of the local construction contractors. Most local people here that would be bidding on a project of this size, they don't have a lot of floating equipment. So this allowed an opportunity maybe to utilize some local talent. So in this case, you go out to the site, you drive your concrete piles here. Out in front is a steel sheet pile wall that is a continuous section, and that's really what retains the earth. And then you come in, and once you get all your piles driven, you have a series of steel H piles back here, and your anchor system. You have soil pressure out here on the front wall, and it takes the load back to these anchor piles back here. And then your vertical loads that are placed on top of the dock go down through these piles here into the soil below. So you come and drive your piles. This is a cast in place, post-tensioned, very large concrete. It's almost like a slab. It's probably nominally about 3 feet thick. Then you'll come in after you get that built, put your ballast on top, and at the same time you can start dredging now out in front. And then you come in with a concrete paving on top of that. That's the first option. The second option that we looked at was an open wharf type arrangement where you come in and the first thing you have to do really is dredge and place your shoreline protection or revetment anti-scour apron under where the structure would be. Then you come in and drive your piles. Now keep in mind, now this is all over open water, so you have to do this from a barge, either working longitudinally as you go, or from a barge setting out here in the transverse direction. As you might expect, you drive piles. These have to be a lot bigger. They have to go deeper because you don't have as much soil. This is all air and water in this area. Over here you have the skin friction from the soil helping support your piles. Okay, so these piles are larger diameter. They have to go deeper, and then you come in and all of this gray section is cast in place concrete. So you have a lot of over-the-water formwork and things like that you have to consider when you're looking at your unit costs and labor production and so forth. Once you get your concrete pile caps cast, and this would be a section looking at a typical bent, which, if everyone's probably familiar with a bridge, you'll see rows of either piers or something like that. You'll have these every 20 feet. There'll be a row of this pile system every 20 feet. And you'll have these large cap systems cast on top of those piles every 20 feet. This is a continuous, very, very large slab, okay? Is this too much detail, or are we okay? We're okay? Okay. Then you'll come in and a lot of times this is very economical. There's a lot of ways that you just see bridge decks built is you'll have precast, pre-stressed concrete modular units to come in that'll be 20 feet long. You set those down on the cap, and then you'll come in and to make your structural member composite, then you'll come in and do a cast-in-place topping on top of that that ties everything together. Okay. Any questions on that that arrangement? You don't have any earth forces to deal with here. You're not retaining any soil, so with exception at the back of the dock, and so you know nothing's trying to push that dock forward. And over in this case, you know that's the way that's behaving. There's a lot of soil pushing on that guy.
What would be the life expectancy of that versus the other one?
You can, with today's technology and concrete admixtures and the knowledge about life prediction, what you can do with concrete mix designs today, cathodic protection, whether it's impressed current or sacrificial anodes, it's pretty easy to achieve a 35 to 50 year design life. That's not to say that your service life wouldn't be longer than that. So, you know, the Navy's typically require now in a lot of their marine facilities, they want to target a 35-year design life. So, with any of these concepts, you can increase or decrease your design life based on detailing. You know, what sort of coating system do you want to use, and you try to balance that out. How much capital cost do you go through right now versus how much maintenance are you willing to spend later down the road? So, did that answer your question then?
Just for my knowledge, what was 15?
Dock 15, we didn't have a specific design life target on that. I believe it was supposed to pay for itself within 30 years, so anything after 30 was gravy. It's probably in the 50-year design life area with proper maintenance on certain components. You know, 15 was designed. You know, probably the largest maintenance item is what you can see will be the pavement on top, and what you can't see is the steel sheet piling below the water line. And 15 was designed so that you come in about 10 years and install an impressed current cathodic protection system.
And how much does roundabout that maintenance piece of it cost, just off the top of your head? Because we're at that 10-year mark.
For impressed current cathodic protection system,
We're past that 10-year mark.
I'm guessing 300 to 500,000.
Okay.
On that order.
Okay.
It's not 50 and it's not a million.
Yeah,
So
okay.
It's something like that. Again, you can get away with sacrificial anodes. There's a lot of issues with those. You can put them on it, you don't have to worry about it. We can get into the CP discussion a bit later if you like. And then the last section is what you'll see in a lot of container dock facilities, assuming you have halfway decent soils. I know this is hard to see in the back, and I'm sorry about this, but what you do is you'll come in and again, the good thing about this one is you can build a lot of this from land, but you'll come in and you'll drive a front wall, and you'll anchor this back to this structure here, and then you basically build it on good fill material, and you put paving on top. Well, the unfortunate thing about this is the types of loadings that you experience on Dock 15 and potentially on Dock 16, this structural system becomes very, very burdensome, very heavy when you have high surcharges. You know, container facilities, relatively speaking, you don't have high surcharges. It's usually 1,000 pounds per square foot. You know, Dock 15 was designed for 2,500 pounds per square foot, and at the time it had the heaviest capacity on the Gulf Coast for a public wharf. Okay, so this is more of a, you'll tend to see this on container docks, but what the thing that happens here is it has a big effect on the front wall member, the earth retaining element. Okay, and what everybody's probably been out to Dock 7 and 8, you can see the corrugated steel sheet piling. That's the same kind of a product that you would use here. It comes in a lot of different thicknesses and shapes and things, but in general, I think you may have a feeling for what that's like. You can't do that down here on this wall. You have to use a combination of either very large wide flange beams with that are you know, on 4 feet centers, say for example, with one of those corrugated sheets in between it, or a very large pipe pile with a corrugated sheet in between it, to be able to take the bending that those higher forces impose on that structure. So that's kind of a little bit about what we looked at and how they behave. I have cost opinions of project cost prepared in there for you all. Most of these other 2 alternatives are under tab 2. And the reason I think that it's good to give you the background of what we looked at and the way they perform. For this particular site, it still shows that the concept used for docks 11, 12, 13, and 15 is still the most economical approach. Okay, so it ranges from 10 to 25% more for either one of these 2 structures. So at that point, our thoughts are, we've applied our same philosophies, our same unit costs were appropriate to come up with these project costs. So at that point, I said, okay, this is definitely the most economical. I don't think it even warrants. We have enough detailed geotechnical information. We've done enough cursory level structural analysis to feel comfortable. This is the option that we should stick with. Now, there are other types of structural systems out there, whether it's gravity-based structures, things like that. Those were basically discounted from the start. Gravity-based structures for based on the site topography for something like this didn't make a lot of sense. So we still feel like this is very constructible. There's all the marine contractors on the Gulf Coast can build this, which they can build this and this also. There's nothing out of the ordinary here. This isn't, there's no state-of-the-art technology that makes this difficult to build. So with that being said, let's focus our discussion on this structure type.
Jeff, at the APA, there was a booth there where they had some alternative to sheet piling. It was coupled together. They said it was stronger than sheet piling.
Clamps.
I'm going to take you to that booth.
Yeah, I need to see exactly what you're talking about to understand.
They said they had worked with you. That you had done some work with that type of, and they said it was depending on the project that it might be cheaper than the sheet piling.
Right.
So we can look at that.
Sure. Yeah. If you want to show that to me, I'm pretty confident in making the statement that this is the preferred technique. There's a lot of other products that are applicable in other situations for different water depth, different soil types, different loadings. Keep in mind that the loading is very aggressive for this structure, and it weeds a lot out pretty quick. So.
Would any of these alternatives that you've presented so far have a greater or a less environmental impact? Would they all have the same environmental impact? And would it affect any mitigation credits that we get? If we choose one? Okay.
I don't believe so. This is, based on where the breasting line is, which is really, the breasting line is somewhat fixed. You can't encroach any further out into the channel than we did on 15, and that's a Corps of Engineers requirement. When the channel was designed, there's a 325 foot setback requirement for the center line of the channel, or it's 330. I'm sorry, I can't remember exactly, and so you can go further into the land, but you can't encroach out into the water anymore. So this is for a marine construction project. The impacts are about as minimal as you're going to get. Okay. There's no sensitive habitat out in here. Now the agencies, and Hector, correct me if I'm wrong, you already have a Corps of Engineers permit to do this work. So, but from a environmental stewardship component or perspective, there's a little bit of benefit to having the open wharf under there because you'll have substrate that's submerged. I'm an engineer, not a biologist. I'd probably argue some of that with the biology side of things. So, probably not. Okay. I might be challenged by a biologist on that discussion, but that's okay. So, taking forward here some of our discussion, really focusing on the relieving platform dock concept. We need to make two jumps. One of them is from the idea of taking dock 15 and putting it at this at the dock 16 site. What changes? Well, the shear strength of the clays is a little bit weaker material here. What that translates into is the soil pressures that are pushed up, that are exerted on the wall are more in the dock 16 area than it would be in the 15 area. Now this little picture down here, this is a plan view, a little cross section through this wall, and this is your corrugated interlocking steel sheet piling. The sheet piling, the cross section that you need for this structure is the depth of the sheet here is a little bit more, and the thickness of the flanges and the webs on the sheet are a little bit more at the 16 site than it would be at the 15 site. Okay, that's everything being the same. The design dredge depth being minus 42 plus 2 plus 1, or a total of 45. Again, that's also under the assumption that we are dealing with 2,500 pounds per square foot live load surcharge. And there's some different reasons that 2,500 was agreed upon as one of the design parameters for dock 15. We also thought, okay, and I think Hector and I had some dialogue on this. What if you kept 15 with the 2,500 PSF rating, and maybe you were more selective on your cargoes, and you bumped it down to say 1,500 PSF on the dock 16 area? And I've done some economic analysis for us on that really shows the impact of that live load reduction of 1,000 pounds a square foot. Okay. So, okay, we're over here. We have the 2,500 PSF minus 45 arrangement here, heavier sheet pile wall in dock 15. As you recall, we also talked about the idea of maybe designing a dock facility for minus 52, or minus 50 plus 2 feet of advanced maintenance. What happens when we do that is you have more wall height here. The wall wants to bend more, and what you used to be able to hold the structure, the soils back with these corrugated steel sheet piles, now you need to go to a combination wall or a combi wall arrangement. And what's the effect? Well, it's the level of effort and design is about the same. The cost is more. You need heavier elements to do the work. So. And so we looked at the effects of what happens if you deepen it. Okay. Now we can talk about some dollars. That's not intentional. Let me pull one of these out, and if anybody would like to see one of these, I'd be happy to hand this out. This is also under tab number 1. What I did, keep in mind we talked about how much effect does the backlands cost have on the overall facility. So I thought, knowing going into this that we have budget constraints, let's look at maybe breaking out all the backland development, because it may be such that you don't need to do all of it, or you don't need to do or you only need to do very little of it to get you a functioning dock. So what I did is break out the dock component here for minus 45 feet, and also break out the dock component here for minus 52 feet. Again, this is for 2,500 PSF live load. Down here at the bottom, I've got some footnotes. I didn't re-summarize in tabular form the cost differences if you bump those numbers down to 1,500 PSF. Okay, but there's a summary down here. Basically, you can save $1 million by reducing your live load capacity. So, the big scheme of things, you're talking about 5% of your structure cost to reduce the live load capacity on that.
So we can afford to.
What Hector and I were talking about is most of the time when everything is unloaded, all that cargo doesn't stay on the face of the dock. It's moved back to the back. So the 2,500 would be if that stuff stayed on the dock all the time.
Yeah, That's a good point. Something to consider when you're talking about live loads, a uniformly distributed surcharge is one type of load. And that would be, for example, if you had, one of the self-unloading ships from the Yucatan come out and dump out some Type A Grade 1 base material, which was a potential consideration for Dock 15, the design parameters on that. And you want to pile up this big pile of rock or something. That's 100, what does that stand, 130 pounds of cubic foot? 140 pounds of cubic foot, so you're talking 10, 15 feet, 15, 16 feet of material, the Type A Grade 1 base material. That would give you something on the order of 2,500 pounds per square foot. We also looked at the time, there was a transition being made in steel coils, the sizes of the coils that the port was handling. And we looked at the smaller size as well as the potential larger size, which you all are handling now. Looked at the weight of the coil, looked at the footprint, looked at the stacking arrangement. Are you going to stack them as a single level? And then we also looked at equipment loadings. And sometimes that can control. I can't remember on this particular structure what controlled. If there was a particular crane that we worked with the stevedores to determine what potential needs they even foresaw in the future. Sometimes that's still, if you're designing a structure for a 50-year life, you might want to go ahead and design it for something a little bit more than just what is anticipated or known at the time. So it could be that the crane loadings controlled on this particular structure. I don't remember, but 2,500 is one of the criteria out of 10. So let's keep that in mind. So up here we have minus 45. We're talking about if you just look at the structure cost and the dredging, you're talking about on the order of $15 million. We need to add some mobilization and performance and payment bonds and things like that in there also. So that's another $600,000. So you're at about 15.6 just for the dock, and then there's materials testing requirements. Especially, there's a lot of materials testing on all of these structure types. It's a lot more involved than typical commercial building construction or something like that. And then we've got some, and I haven't discussed any of these numbers with Hector in terms of engineering and construction administration. It's my best guess at this point, it's a budget number. Something to be aware of here is at this point, typically at a conceptual, there's three levels usually that engineers want to try to take in a project. The first one is conceptual, the second is preliminary, and the third is at the final design level. And we'll try to give our opinion of what the cost will be at those different levels. Usually, depending on how much information is known and how much work you do, at the conceptual level, your contingencies that you assign to the project are 25 to 30% normally. At the preliminary level, they're probably 15%. At the final level, you might do 0 to 5% contingencies. It's because you refine what you know and what you don't know as you go through the process, and that's the reason that we usually allocate project contingencies is for the unknowns. In this case, based on the level of work we did, the level of investigation that we did geotechnically, we did hydrographic, topographic surveys to accurately determine how much fill is going to be required. We also looked at, we did an underwater dive survey to look for potential debris, which we have found in the Oil Dock 5 area. Had a few surprises there by not doing an underwater sweep. And so if there's an old trestle in the way or something like that, it's better to know about it now than it is when somebody shows up out there working. So you can see we did pick a 20% contingency for this level of effort, which I want to be open with the logic that we used in doing these estimates. As of today, based on everything I know and a reasonable market condition, it's very likely that you could get the structure built for this much money. Okay? I don't feel it's prudent for me to advise you to say, if you just have that much, I think you can embark on this project. So whether you would actually, and again, it needs to be designed when the project is bid. Market conditions dictate a lot on marine construction. It dictates a whole lot on dredging. while the dredgers are busy, you can have a lot of surprises on your bid prices, if you get a bid at all. So I'm not trying to be an alarmist there. That's not the point of the discussion. I'm just trying to say, yeah, I think if we were to go out and just build that dock structure, I think you could probably get that done for 15 million plus 600,000. So $15.5 million, call it, just for the dock. That's not the materials testing or anything else. So that's not a whole lot more than you all currently have. Well, I guess it's $3 or $4 million more than you currently have, but in a percentage-wise, it's a whole lot better than we were at this point with Dock 15. Okay, so keep that in mind. So I'm focusing on this minus 45 number here, equating to, by the time you look at the dock, the dredging, some of the materials testing and contingencies, we get up to 19.8. If you want to bump that over to 52-foot design dredge depth, you add in there about $3 million to accommodate that deeper water depth. Again, there's some deducts here if we want to look at different surcharges, but the cost implications of reducing your live load capacity is not a whole lot for this facility. Now what we did was we did a couple of different layouts. We looked at two different arrangements. There's no graphical depiction of layout B. The reason I didn't do that was there's not a whole lot of economic difference between layout A and layout B. You're talking about $2.3 to $2.5 million. There are some things that, what that backland facility, what this $2.3 million number includes here is the extension of the roadway, rehabilitation of the existing patio or laydown area, a smaller new patio area. There's some corner paving. There's a dock house that would be built there, and then some site utilities, which includes, if you have a dock house, you need potable water going to it. You need electricity going to it. Usually there's sanitary sewer provisions. We have to collect that and take it somewhere, so we would use a grinder pump lift station in this case, and then force main it over to the nearest sanitary sewer line manhole over on Dock 15. So again, I've got numbers added up here for different testing and things like that, administrative costs and so forth. So if you take option one, which is minus 45 plus 2,500 PSF, plus all of the backlands that's shown on the exhibit, it's essentially a $22 million facility. Now, I'm aware of the budget requirements, budget constraints, I guess, that the navigation district currently has. So what comes to mind is once you develop this, and once we develop it and we feel comfortable that this is doable, this is the right way to go, how can we cut back on some of these costs? It's probably a little bit too much to go into in this room. There are some things that we were able to do on Dock 15, such as pre-purchase of the sheet piling material, where the port pays for it. We sequenced the bid packages in a way that the construction contractor, we had him unload it, but to avoid the markup on $1.5 million to $2.5 million of material, port does a separate bid package. Now there's some risk in doing that, but that was a way to save 10 or 15% on top of $2 million. So incrementally we go through some of these items to decrease the project budget. Do you need the full patio area? Do you need a patio area at all? Do you need utilities? Might be something you could use. You can develop, the good thing about the way this site works is that you can develop the backlands later. So keep that in mind. There's some things on dredging. Yeah, dredging is $2 to $2.5 million for this. I mean, it's a huge amount of money. One of the things that we did last time was we did not include the dredging as part of the dock construction. And our thinking there was, let's get the dock under construction. Let's get that started, and let's look at the Corps' maintenance dredging contract cycle. Well, we knew what that was. And let's don't have the contractor bid on something that they're gonna, they can't dredge for a year until after the dock's finished. So let's don't have him bid on something and hold that bid price for a year, one. Two, he doesn't know where he's gonna have to mobilize from, so he's gonna put as much mobilization in there as it would take him to mobilize from wherever he might be. And so what we did was we just kind of paid attention to the market, and we were able to, because of the percentage amount of the overall project, we actually negotiated with the dock contractor to go down and pick up the dredger that's doing the inshore reach number 1, and we saved $400,000 in mobilization. And we also were able to negotiate unit prices. And in an open bid situation, you can't negotiate. Change order, you could. So we were able to do some things like that to optimize the project cost. And we can go through a list of other ways to save, but I think that's probably, hope I'm killing you guys with too much detail here. But,
no, that's good. I think that's probably the way we're gonna have to go at it again. Put down there where we can, get the best for our money.
Any, I'll leave those boards here, and if we need some more handouts, or if you'd like personally to have some more explanation of what these numbers are and how we arrived at them, I'd be glad to do that with you.
Item number 7, receive technical proposal by Black & Veatch on Port of Brownsville Master Plan.
No, you're kicking us out for notes.
Well, good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to present our scope and cost estimates. Do I need to wait a minute here?
We'll be right back. Go ahead.
Our topics tonight are going to be a general overview of our team. Again, just to reintroduce it, it's been several months since we talked about it. The scope, the schedule, cost, the deliverables, the tangible deliverables, and answer any questions which we want to hear. Our team consists of the prime being Black & Veatch. And I listed out the responsibilities. Those aren't totally specific. Black & Veatch will be the program administrator. Gonzalez Engineering will be facilitating all of our local support. So we're going to rely on them for your area knowledge, for any surveying work, civil engineering, and any type of computer technical applications that we may need to the capacity that they can support. HPA, Ham Potter and Associates, our port planning project manager. They're going to oversee the actual plan development and implementation of the plan development process. Schrader Engineering, they're going to do our utility studies for both electrical and some other aspects too, but primarily focusing on electrical with assistance from Edmundo. John Martin and Associates, they're going to provide a variety of economic analysis for the planning project. It's going to be a 4-phased approach. Each of the first 2 phases are divided into separate specialty items, which it's like a modular concept where we can do the immediate needs items such as security, environmental issues, traffic studies, which I've heard is an immediate need, can be pushed to the front. It's all modular, so as long as it's all completed. The first, if you want to look at this as a good methodology, phase one is the current use of the port. So we're assessing the facilities, we're assessing the operational efficiencies, environmental aspects, security aspects, all those things are all being built into this and updating all the compliance and regulatory information that's required. Phase 2 through 4 is the future use of the port. So where are we going to go with this? What are the recommendations? What are the optimal usage of the land that can be sustained for port development? I think we should talk a little bit more about phase 2. Actually go through the phases just a little bit, add a little bit more detail to it. Phase 2 is the economic analysis. We're going to look at all the cargo, the trade routes, what is sustainable here as a trade, as a possible land use, long-term land use. Things like power generation. You bring in more land use. Conceptually, if you talk about a container terminal, they require a specific generation capacity unto themselves just because the cranes and all their services are electrical. So all those aspects, when you build this plan out, have to be a function of this part of this assessment. So we need to understand, number one, what's currently in the port. And number two, based on our recommendations, what does the port have to upgrade to meet the needs of the port? Not only the port, but also the areas surrounding it, like the public utilities board and their power needs. I spoke with them today, and their goal is a 500 megawatt facility on your property. So there's some real good dynamics going there. The desalinization plant concept. There's a whole variety of things in the works. Some of them have already have funding, some of them are conceptual in nature. That all fits into this phase 2 aspect here. Phase 3 is a concept finalization, where we take all these analysis that were completed. We look at all the different trade routes, and we look at the possible customers or lessees, port lessees, and see who's, it's a reality check. And then that's where we put the plan out. That's where the plan is actually developed, the hard copy. The first 2 phases will have reports. There's going to be a lot of tangibles to come out of it, and I'll go into those in a minute. But the actual plan that you put on the desk and you can reference and you can market and sell, which is phase 4, is going to be delivered in phase 3. Scheduling. With the hope that we'll have an agreement on scope and cost estimates in December. We can either have a kickoff very shortly. We can have a kickoff within a week to 2 weeks of the ratification of our contract. We can begin work on certain items, traffic studies, that kind of thing, immediately. Same thing. There's a port grant application package that's got to be worked on very shortly, and there's some lead-up work that goes to that. So there's a lot of immediate need items. And we understand that, and we're available and ready. All the subs and your prime are available to start work the day that we have a ratified contract. So phase 1, we're looking at about a 16-week period to get phase 1 done, all the assessment parts of this plan development. Phase 2 will commence on completion of phase 1 and will take approximately 6 months to complete. The expected start date based on a contract this month would be June of 2007. Phase 3 will require an additional 6 months to complete and will commence upon phase 2 completion. It could be earlier than December of next year, but December is a good nominal scheduling date to use, or good milestone to use. So it just matters on how fast we proceed, and it could be done in a shorter time frame, but we're looking at December of next year to have the plan on the table. Phase 4 is that's really dependent on the needs of the port, depending on your prospective clients, the funding sources that we identify and actually achieve. Other agencies that we're working with, the Public Utilities Board, and AAP, your shipping, your steamship companies, and the container facility operators, anybody that might have a play in this. Phase 4 is the next step. We're marketing to them, and then once we get an agreement from them, we do some more conceptual design. So phase 4 is, we have the plan, and we're there to help you get to the next step. So that marketing approach. Cost. These are estimated costs, and my recommendation, and I've talked to Donna and Hector about, is that we're going to do a not to exceed for each of these individual specific modules. So the spreadsheet's broken down into modules. There's probably about 12 or 13 of them. And this is generated totals for phase 1 and phase 2. And use a not to exceed, uses a not to exceed cap. But it's going to be billed at a time and material invoice. So this could be less for one area, so that there's more hours to apply to another area. So that's the concept that we're using. So this is, again, not to exceed. Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4 we can't cost until we get an agreement on the results of phase 2 from the port and the board. Deliverables. Phase 1 has a lot of deliverables right up front. We're going to conduct another facility security assessment, facility security plan developed to meet the your 5-year schedule. There's a 5-year schedule to redo all your security required, your compliance programs and your security based on Marine Transportation Security Act. The 07 grant package, the security improvement plan, which is a long-term approach, a systemic approach to security, so to allow for a modular growth based on our planning process. The environmental management system to go and assess all the activities on the port right now, the activities that are up and coming, the permit requirements, any kind of cleanup activity that might need to occur. It all goes, and then the compliance programs that go along with development. That all goes into the environmental management system. Traffic management study. That's going to be conducted early in phase 1. It's going to give you a report based on current activity. And the metrics can be adjusted if we need to know how many trucks are coming, and chassis are coming into the port with a Mexican registration. And we can identify that. We just have to identify the metrics and the sampling that we need to accomplish for your deliverable. I've heard that there might be a need for that. So that's a doable item as long as we have it up front and we can design our metrics for it. That's a week process to get a traffic report. 2 days in the field, and then development of the port is about 3 or 4 days in the work. So it's a week to 2 weeks to get a finalized report on traffic study. Phase 3, phase 2, land use recommendations, economic and cargo assessments, and the master plan report. That's the finalized master plan report based on phase 1, and then the additional assessments, economic assessments from phase 2. Phase 3 is your finalized master plan, and then phase 4 is your actual concepts. Put your concepts to work to go for whatever kind of package you want. If you want to go down the design build route, you want to do design bid build, however you want to approach it to set this development process up. And now I'll take questions. I hope I wasn't too quick. I wanted to hit all the topics. I know you have our spreadsheets, and there's a difference in numbers for phase 2. The initial estimate for phase 2, most of phase 2 is being done by another sub, which is Martin Associates. We were able to streamline the process, streamline the cost, and reduce the cost by almost 1/2.
Based on the cost figures we do, and last board meeting I provided each of you with the cost breakdown of monies that we had allocated in our budget. So we do have this money already budgeted for. And phase 2 would not begin until our next fiscal year, so we'd budget that money in there, but phase 1 is budgeted.
Phase 1 and phase 2 would simultaneously come together and you'd finish at the same time, or would it be phase 1 first and then 2, or?
Phase 1 and then phase 2.
Okay.
Phase 1 is the assessment of where we are right now, putting together your facility assessment to determine the state of the facilities, the utility requirements, all that kind of stuff. Everything that's happening right here and right now. And then we'll go to phase 2 with the concepts developed from that.
How do you deal with projects that are being worked on that have not been given the green light, such as Dock 16? I mean, do you plan that it's going to be there, or how do you? How do you all work?
All right. Well, I guess we'll approach it 2 different ways. There's a conceptual, and then there's something that you've have in your acquisition plan that you've already funded. If it's in the acquisition plan and it's got real money and it's got milestones already set, then we'll include it in the master plan. So we're going to approach you with all that information and get your. We don't anticipate putting this all together and approaching you at the end. What we anticipate is giving you periodic updates as to where we are, questions that we have for you, and the questions that you may have for us, including your acquisitions and improvements with you over the next 5 to 10 years.
To answer your question, they are going to look at Dock. They're going to take a look at what we have right now and see if there are ways to make us, one, operate more efficiently so that we can plan for Dock 16. Or he may come back and say, you know what, guys, you need Dock 16 right now. You're in big trouble. Or he could say, you know, if we change this, Dock 16 could be, further down the road. Our bridge is going to be included in there, the concept of the bridge, the traffic that goes in the bridge, things like that.
So we're going to look at where the bridge is now too. That's another thing, is we're going to gather everything that you have up to now, and where is it now, and what do we have to do to get it to where you want it to be. Same thing with Dock 16, which is well on its way right now. But again, we're trying to optimize what you have right now so that the growth around it doesn't impair your current operation.
That also cover the BRG or the railroad services?
The railroad services as a transportation infrastructure are included in the assessment. That's a little bit easier because they have a real good idea what comes and goes. Not real good, they have a firm idea of what comes and goes. It's not like the traffic in and out of the port that you have on the road that you don't. You only have maybe a concept of what it is. Sometimes that's not very accurate.
Any questions, gentlemen? Commissioner? Next item.
Item number 8, consider an act on contract with Black & Beach for Port of Brownsville Master Plan. We do have a contract that was sent over by Black & Beach, and Daniel has looked at that. He made a few revisions to that contract. Rich got here this afternoon. Their attorney had some small revisions, so I would just ask or I would recommend that we approve the contract based on Daniel looking at the revisions that their attorney made and him being okay with those.
And it's a contract for phase 1 and 2?
Yes.
With which figure at phase 2, the higher or the lower figure?
The lower figure. And Daniel has those updated figures.
Can you explain to me, sir, will John Martin's company continue to be involved in phase 2, or will they be cut out, or?
Now they're getting the bulk of the work in phase 2. Phase 1 is pretty much feet on the ground, trying to get on survey, engineering, and specialty items. Phase 2 is where John Martin's expertise will be used.
But how is his fee being lowered?
Well, we negotiated with him and got him to cut his hourly wages.
Okay.
He agreed to lower.
Okay. Well, can't turn that down. Good job. I make a motion that we approve the contract as presented.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item number 9, status report on port deepening feasibility study.
Well, we continue working with the Corps of Engineers on a port deepening study. We're basically presently undertaking several tasks: the baseline risk assessment, hydraulic and hydrology modeling of salinity and shoreline stabilization. But reason I'm really put this item is because as part of the work, we need to do a public scoping meeting. And basically, it is a requirement of the federal and regulatory process. Right now, This needs to be, there's a couple of them. One of them is in the beginning, in the relatively beginning stages of the project. The main goal is to inform the public of our activities and the process that it undergoes through the federal regulations in order for ultimately achieving the report. We need to, currently, it is anticipated the public scoping meeting will be around the second week of February. I'm waiting for a specific date from the commander of the Army Corps of Engineers in Galveston, and I will relay that to you. Prior to that, we need to publish in the Federal Register 30 days prior to the meeting, the scope meeting, as well as in our local newspaper. We will also need to inform all of our current tenants and adjacent landowners of what we plan to do. This is the time, basically, for us to showcase our project. Yeah, I anticipate this probably will be at the public library. We'll probably need seating requirements for over 100 people. We will also obviously be inviting all our dignitaries and other entities like the Chambers of Commerce, other ports, and it's an opportunity for us to showcase our project again. And that's the main reason that I wanted to just bring to your attention to sort of schedule in your calendar the second week of February for this specific meeting. It will probably be around 6:30 in the afternoon.
Thank you, Hector.
Very good idea, Hector.
Yes. Next item?
Item number 10, consider an act on awarding the contract for the installation of tracks at spurs 16 and 17. Hector?
Just stay there.
This is the one I didn't want to. On the rail spur 16 and 17, we advertised on the newspaper on the 19th and the 26th. We opened up bids yesterday. Let me pass a copy of the bid. A copy of the bid tabulation. There were 7 companies that picked up the packages, and only 3 firms submitted their packages, being South Texas Rail, Pointer Smith, and Railroad Repair and Maintenance. The low bid was Railroad Response Repairs and Maintenance with a total of $82,947.40. The second bid was $85,439.30 from South Texas Railroad. And the third bid was Pointer Smith with $175,299. The lowest, most responsible bidder at this time will be Railroad Response and Maintenance. However, because of their work, yes, they did submit, yes, of course. That
They were all within spec? All 3 were within spec?
Yes, as far as the submitter is. Right. It's just that he qualified his bid because of his ongoing commitments. He cannot provide a performance bond. And I checked with Mr. Renfro whether that is something that we could waive if it was in the best interest of the port. Mr. Renfro's recommendation is that because it is a requirement on our bidding procedures, that we cannot. So at this time, I guess what I'm requesting from you is to go back to Mr. Murray and say, no, we cannot waive those. We'll give you 10 days to provide both the performance and the payment bond, and if not, then we will go to number 2, second bid, which will be South Texas Rail. Because he has qualified his bid, then we would not basically retain his cashier's check or bid bond, as he did qualify.
So there's a question whether he even met the spec, I guess.
Yes, basically he does not right now.
Right.
Yes. So,
even though he's a low bidder.
Correct. And but I'd like to. It's a courtesy given the opportunity and say, we have received we have considered your bid, but we cannot waive those requirements. Can you, or are you still interested?
My question is, can we do that? Can we reopen a window to allow the low bidder to meet spec?
Well, you would offer him a contract on all the specs, but at the same price. He would not be entitled to increase his price.
Gotcha.
If he wants to then provide the bond for the same price, I think you can do that. But he would not be allowed to revise his price.
Right.
He'd have to stick to what he's got there.
Right. And if he decides not to do it, then we can go with the next
85.
number 2. All right.
So,
A second.
We have a motion on the table. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Item number 11, consider and take action on extending, modifying, or canceling contract of A.J. Vassal Associates, Inc. A few months ago, we brought to the board a contract on Mr. Vassal that was done a year ago. The way the original contract was done, it was needed to be approved or revised every quarter. Mr. Vassal is asked this time that his contract be renewed with the same terms as the original contract, other than that clause. He would like it to be done for a year's period of time instead of the quarters. I went back and I reviewed his contract, and he has met 2 phases of his contract, which were to promote the port when he attends meetings and trade shows and conferences, and to identify and help our marketing staff open doors with shipping lines that would have a possible interest in the port, and he has done that. But I believe that he's failed to perform on the last item, which is to bring in newer additional business to the port. He's had a year's time on his contract, and I just, although he's a very nice man, and as I said, I'm sure he does to promote the port and help us. We actually need, if we're going to continue to do this type of service, I believe that we need to get somebody that performs and brings in business.
Where is he based out of, Miss Seymour? New Jersey, and he's trying to find clients in what areas is he, when he communicates with you? Is it in the East Coast area?
Yes, sir. And our marketing staff, Herman Rico, Tony's not here, but Herman, is open for questions. Herman deals with Mr. Vassal a lot more than I do, and he's worked very closely with them. The background behind hiring someone from that area was that most of the shipping lines have their home offices in that area. And so they would be more familiar with the staff, with the people involved in making the decisions. And so that was the mentality behind hiring this firm in the first place. And I believe he has put you in charge. I mean, in contact with some of those firms. As I said, that's why I said, there are parts of his contract that he has performed on, but the bottom line is if we're going to spend money, we need to get business.
If you've had contact with him and say he's contacted the majority of those folks up in the East Coast, what has been the reception? Have they embraced the Port of Brownsville, or what does he say about it? Are they waiting, or they've got...
There's a couple of shipping lines that they have that he has made contact with. One of them being Zim, that is calling on the Port of Tampa. They recently are going to start call service. From our discussions, it's basically that because of the close proximity to Houston, it is not feasible at the present time
for us
to make a direct call with a 5,000 or 6,000 TEU container ship in the port. We've actually now kind of changed the situation a little bit to where I'm asking them to see if we could go and entertain, go and meet, open the doors to the actual terminal handlers for a lot of these shipping lines, which in the same is almost about the same company. So it's what we're trying. I mean, he is, I can say that he has not done several moves. And, from his reports, we see that he has made contact.
I kind of will give an opinion that I think possibly we should probably, in the past, when we were in a situation similar to this, we went on a month-to-month. And I'm thinking that we should afford the same process that we used last time, where we should probably go month-to-month until we hire the port director, and then he makes the decision on whether he wants to renew it or not. That's kind of my take on it. Of course, that's not what he is offering. I mean, he should, he has to accept. He might not want that, but I think, something that, is offered to him and he can decide not to take it or to take it.
Well, and that's always an option. But I just will tell you that a lot of the stuff that he is doing will hit in the master plan. I mean, we'll have, John Martin's gonna do we'll do a lot of this, the market research, and we'll know exactly what markets are out there, what people we can target. And I don't see the necessity of paying him $1,500 a month to kind of tell us what we'll know through our master plan.
I was not at the first meeting recently where this was brought up, but his contract was renewed within the last 3 months. I think it was one of the first meetings after Mr. List was dismissed.
It was for another quarter, yes.
Another quarter? Were there any special instructions or conditions placed on that at that time?
No, I mean, if they're a fault of our own, I mean, that contract should have been looked at every quarter, but we never do contracts like that, so it just kind of fell through the crack. But we talked to him, and in your package, we put together kind of a plan going forward of what he'd like to target, but again, it's just kind of a continuation of what he's doing right now. It's on page 61.
What about the container on barge service? I mean, what has he done as far as that?
Really on the container on barge for mine, had already been working on that for the past 2 or 3 years. Most of the companies that you see on page 62, the container on barge services, other than the company located out of New Jersey, Vermont's already met and talked to just about everybody on here, and they've actually been completed the court. Columbia Coastal was the first company that came, and that was like, 3 or 4 years ago. They revisited again, so.
Well, let me say something about this. Earlier this year, the previous board was faced with the issue of whether or not to renew the contract of Esther Rodriguez Silva, who was our Monterrey, Mexico consultant, who was being paid $4,000 a month and had not produced anything over several years. And I led the way in cutting her off because she simply had not produced. And I spoke out against that and said it didn't matter whether it was $4,000 or 4,000 pesos. If somebody doesn't produce, they should not be paid. This man, as diligent as he may have been and as nice as he may have been and as helpful as he may have been, the bottom line has got to be results. And on that basis, I think he's had sufficient time to produce. He has not produced, and so therefore I'll make a motion to give him the required notice of termination with all of our thanks for his efforts.
Second.
Questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item number 12, consider an act on awarding B&D medical insurance coverage, short-term and long-term disability insurance. Joe?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, you've received a bid tabulation for the medical and disability coverages for our employees. We received 6 bids for the medical benefits. All of the bids received have a much higher premium for dependents than our current carrier. The copay and prescription drug charges are also lower than any of the other bids. As you can see, we received 3 bids from one carrier through 3 different agents that are identical. Their monthly employee premium is $5 less than we're currently paying, but the dependent coverage is over $500 more per month. The committee that went through these bids feels that keeping our current carrier is the best of all the bidders for our employees and their dependents. And we request that you consider and approve Blue Cross Blue Shield as our medical coverage carrier.
The customer service being provided is satisfactory, Joe?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Our employees are happy with the service that they're getting?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, we received only one other bid for our short-term and long-term disability insurance. Our current carriers are less expensive and they have better benefits, and we feel that we should just continue with our current carriers.
So moved.
Second.
We did give an opportunity for other bidders to
Yes, sir.
come in and sufficient time. We didn't receive any other options.
Yes. I was there for the bid opening. We have a motion on the table. All those opposed? I'm sorry, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
You just said the current carrier.
Oh, I'm sorry. The short-term carrier is Northwestern Mutual, and long-term carrier is Jefferson Pilot.
Item number 13, consider and take action to adopt a new tariff, Port of Brownsville tariff number 6, with an effective date of January 1st, 2007. Debbie?
We had a workshop earlier, and I think there's a few things that we are going to look at this. We are also asking on this for item 431, which is our solid waste collection and disposal license, to be effective on July 1st. I think on item 450, which is our port entry permit, that we would like to put that on hold and not remove that from this adoption. Daniel just kind of told me we need to get this thing adopted because we keep coming up with changes. He suggested that in our licensing provisions that we insert a provision that we can deny access to the port. So I would ask that we,
I don't want a food vendor saying, I don't care whether you're on double red. I have a license and I get into the port.
Right.
So I
He's
think,
asked that we put that in.
I think we need to think through that.
Right of first refusal, kind of.
Can I also just say one more thing on that insurance with the steamship agents?
Yes.
Until we get clarification on that, can we not include that item as well and bring that back to the board separately?
They're in all of the, but if you want to, I can just remove the insurance. There are some provisions in our licenses for the steamship agents, the stevedores, and one other. Line handlers? Line handlers. That put the requirement on them to make sure that their customers and their subcontractors provide insurance for the district, liability that covers the district. And they are having a little bit of a problem with this. And we are looking at talking to some people about the P&I clubs and see how that works, how it works in the industry, and see what it is, what options we have on this. So if you would prefer, there are several that I can pull out. There are about five provisions in this tariff that deal with this. We can pull those provisions out and put the tariff in without those. We'll come back to you with our recommendations.
That includes item 450?
Not the trucks.
Or with the transportation?
It is not included in 450, so we would ask the 431, which is the solid waste, be effective on July 1st, 450, which is the permits for the trucks, to come out. Then the 5 provisions on the insurance that have to do with our licensing to come out. And the qualifications that Daniel would like to make on our licenses, that if we need to shut down the port, that we can deny someone who has a license entry into the port. And with that, I would ask that you adopt this with an effective date of January 1.
Be adopted, subject to all these changes and coming back with these other.
Yes, sir.
Total items that you want excluded are how many, Ms.?
There are 5.
Okay.
There are 5. There are actually 5 sections of items.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion on the table. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
can I go back to the Tony Vassell thing? I just had an idea, Herman. What we want to do with the contacts that we got through Vassell was you and the port director notify them that we're still interested in their business. In other words, we don't want to cut that communication with them.
Absolutely.
We're just not routing it through Vassell anymore. Okay. I'm sorry. I should have thought of that earlier, but yeah, good. And just let them know that we're here and we'd like their business.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms.
Are we
Dick.
done?
Anything else? Item 14? 13.
Item 14, consider and act on the following leases. Item number 1, Leela May Milford Trust new lease.
I gotta pick up my daughter. Do we have any meetings?
Chairman, Commissioners, this is a new lease that will replace B&D Contract 2998. It's the same lessee. It's for the purpose of rail material storage and steel fabrication. This contract is ready for the board's consideration. It is located right in this area.
Okay. We have a motion on the table to adopt item number 1 on item 14. All those in favor?
Was there a second?
No second?
Second?
Seconded by Commissioner Cristiano. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Item number 2, Signet Tug and Barge Company, new lease.
Request a table of this item.
Second.
All those in favor? Motion carries.
Item number 15, consider and take action on assignments, negotiations, easements, subleases, and contracts in general. Item number 1, Almas and Fuentes, authority to negotiate.
Yes, this lessee is requesting to add to their purpose clause the right to operate a restaurant bar. The present purpose clause is for truck parking and office. I looked up, researched that the board had given us, South Central Coaches right here, that's across the street, had given the right to sell alcoholic beverages, but they stated that they were only given 5 years, a 5-year period, and not more. I mean, that was a policy. So, and anybody that was here before was grandfathered until the end of their term. And then only they could sell like for off premises consumption. So, Mr. Cifuentes is here, and he'd like, to fix up that building and, again, use it as a restaurant bar.
The alcohol permit would come from the state, not through us. And it's outside the area.
Outside the secured area.
So I don't see.
I thought the board, at the time that South Central lease came up, adopted some guidelines.
I do.
With meals. What's in-
It was like a mixture, like.
It was 80-20. It was an 80-20.
Right. I thought the board formally adopted that.
Yeah,
Is
yes.
this lease consistent with that?
Oh, no, well, no.
They're under negotiation right now.
No, this is to get authority to negotiate to add to the purpose clause. They'd be able to do
So that would have
this.
to be part of it. 80-20?
80-20.
But they must know, have they been given those guidelines?
No, I just received the request, so I'm bringing it to the board
For
first.
the new board members, I think there is a policy on this issue, sale of alcohol.
Yeah.
If I recall correctly, I think we did have a policy when somebody else was gonna move in. I think there was a mixture of how much money had to come from food and how much had to come from alcohol.
80-20.
And then I think there was also some, I wanna say,
Let's go back and make sure.
just,
I've got the minutes here where you, if you'd like me to read them.
Sure.
I've got here. Okay. It was noted that A&T Port Mart already has a lease for allowing for the sale of alcoholic beverages for off-premises consumption, so any action should grandfather that lease. Mr. De Los Santos then moved to approve the policy as presented with a restriction of 5 years on leases allowing the current term of its lease. Further discussion followed regarding whether sale for off-premises consumption should be allowed. Mr. Cristiano then seconded the motion with the amendment that it also allow the sale of alcohol for off-premises consumption. Mr. De Los Santos accepted the amendment to this motion, and then being so further discussion, the motion passed unanimously. Mr. Cristiano then moved to approve the amendment to South Central Coaches lease, and Mr. De Los Santos seconded the motion. Carried unanimously.
You'll give them a copy of that policy.
Yes.
and just make sure he knows what we have to do.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item 16, adjourning to executive session.
Okay, it's now 7:20. We adjourn into executive section. Thank you.